Welcome to the Crowdline College Football Show with Lou Holtz and Mark May. I'm Kevin Trimble, your moderator. And gentlemen, we're in week 13, and this is not week 13, this is rivalry week. We have Thanksgiving on Thursday, family comes in, and as Coach we talked about, Thanksgiving is about, well, we're going to be thankful, but it's eat some turkey and watch some football. But we are in rivalry week, and with rivalry week, as you know, the stakes are a lot higher, one for bragging rights. But right now, there are also some conference championships that are going to be determined. Because as of right now, we talk about Power 5. The ACC has their two teams, they're locked in. Clemson is now playing Coastal Champion Pitt on December 1st. And then the SEC, as we know, is Georgia is going to play Alabama on December 1st in the SEC championship game. But don't forget, you got the Big 10, the Big 12, Pac-12, AAC. All those are up for grabs. And what happens this weekend, what happens on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, has a lot to do with who's going to win those conference championships, but more importantly, who's going to play for that national championship. And it still comes down to this. We talk about national championship implications, bowl implications, but there's also, some teams that, they're not going to a bowl. Maybe this is a springboard to that next season to get a little more momentum going. But we talk about stakes are high. We raise the stakes here at the Crowdline. So this week's Rivalry Week College Football Show contest it's going to be combining both prize pools. So the first prize, whoever picks the most games, accurate scores with the spread, is going to get a $500 Amazon gift card. So be prepared, get on your phone, get on your app, get on your computer, and get ready to pick these games. And with that said, gentlemen, let's talk about Week 12. We had 10 games in Week 12, and the first one was right here in Orlando, primetime Cincinnati at UCF. We thought it was going to be, UCF's finally going to get tested. Cincinnati was ranked, UCF was number 12, and 38-13. Mark, you saw that.
But you look at this game, and it was a close game if you just look at the statistics. If you look at the numbers, it's only 19 yards separating both of these teams, but the key was UCF was able to put the ball in the end zone. Mackenzie Milton, again, he only completed 13 passes in this game, but for 3 touchdowns, Coach. But he gave them a touchdown in their end zone. That was the only reason why they got 13 points. This game shouldn't have been close. It should have been a blowout. But Mackenzie Milton is the real deal. Each and every week, he impresses me more and more. They don't have to blow teams away. They just have to continue to win, and they've won 23 in a row.
Because I live in the state of Florida and city of Orlando, I'm very well aware of UCF, and I've been high on them the entire year. They have a great running back. He's not very big. They're very fast. Mackenzie Milton's tremendous. They have outstanding receivers and an excellent offensive line. They're a complete football team, Mark. And you look at the fact that they beat Auburn last year, and then they come back, they beat Pitt 45-14, and Pitt's a very good football team, won the ACC. So I don't think UCF gets the credit they truly deserve. If I was coaching, I would not want to play UCF.
Well, I tell you who nobody else wants to play is the Panthers from the University of Pittsburgh. They had to win one of 2 games against either Wake Forest or Miami to be the ACC Coastal Division champion. And guess what? They just took care of business. 34-13, they took it to them. Mr. Hall of Famer from Pitt, Mark May, tell us about that big game.
Well, Kenny Pickett, the quarterback, was terrific, 23-30 in the game, but I thought it was dominating in the second half where they outscored Wake 28-3. They held the ball for almost 40 minutes in this football game. Pat Narduzzi and his staff did a terrific job. But, Coach, I've got to tell you, ever since I gave them that pep talk, they lost to Notre Dame 19-14. They won 4 games in a row, and now they're ACC Coastal Division champions.
Now, did you give that pep talk before they lost to North Carolina 39-38, or before they lost to Penn State 51-6, or before they lost to UCF 45-14? But I will say this. That was a great win for Pitt because Wake Forest had to either beat Pitt or Duke at Duke in order to be bowl eligible. So I knew that they got the very best shot from Wake Forest. But congratulations to Pitt. It was a very methodical win, and I love their young quarterback. He is a real competitor. He reminds me a lot of Mackenzie Milton of UCF. He just makes plays, and he's a great leader.
We talked about the Pitt Panthers and the roar of the crowd that from all the way from Pittsburgh was probably heard in Stillwater. And here's why. Because the number 9 West Virginia Mountaineers went down there and played Oklahoma State. And you know what? Win that game, and then win your next game, win the next 2, and you might even be in the playoff hunt. But it didn't happen. 45-41. Taylor Cornelius and the Oklahoma State Cowboys they got it done. Came from behind, beat the Mountaineers. Mark, talk to us about that, please.
West Virginia was cruising in this game. At halftime, they were up by 17 points, so they should have just cruised in the second half. But for some reason, their defense let them down. But Taylor Cornelius, as you said, had a terrific game. 5 touchdown passes. But here's the key. He rushed the ball for over 100 yards and another touchdown in this game. And threw the winning touchdown pass with 42 seconds left to go in the game. They came roaring back. The mullet got it done. It was a great victory for Oklahoma State.
When you go on the road, Mark, the one thing you need to pack is your discipline and your defense, and they didn't bring their defense. What's really amazing about Oklahoma State, try this. How did they lose to Texas Tech, Iowa State, Kansas State, and Baylor, yet beat West Virginia, Texas, and Boise State? You talk about a team up and down, but at home, they played a great game, but it's really a shame that the defense didn't show up, particularly the second half.
Well, we have a tough one that went out there in Oregon, because Herm Edwards' Arizona State Sun Devils came in and they win this game. They are in the hunt for the Pac-12 South title. But, Coach, as we talked about earlier, Arizona State can't win on the road. Oregon took care of business, 31-29. So, you know what? Justin Herbert did what he had to do, but Herm Edwards and his guys got just close enough and couldn't close the deal. Mark, you know Herm Edwards. Talk to us about this.
Well, the key to this football game, they got behind early in this football game. They had to battle back. But the good thing about it for Arizona State, they did battle back in the second half. They outscored the Ducks 16-3 and made a run at it. The problem was red zone operation for the offense for Arizona State. They didn't get things done. They had 3 trips in the red zone, came away with 9 points, 3 field goals. When you're on the road and you're playing against an opponent and you got to have a big win, you got to score touchdowns. You can't score field goals. They made a terrific run at this game and made it a close game at the end, but they just didn't get it done. And for Herm Edwards and this football team, it's been a tough year on the road. They're 1-4 on the road, but they've been all close victories by 7 points or less. So at least they're building something and they're going to a bowl this year.
Boy, that's the type of conference I want to coach in. You got 3 conference losses and you still have a chance to win the championship? That's unbelievable. It was a great effort by Arizona State. Oregon's a different football team at home. It's a great win for them, make no mistake about it. But now, Arizona State isn't going to win the conference championship. However, they can keep their arch rival Arizona from going to a bowl next week. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the show.
Now, those first-year head coaches, they're going to go at it. But this next game, our most experienced coach, Lou Holtz, on Twitter this week, he put Notre Dame, Syracuse won't be close. Syracuse is overrated. Notre Dame's underrated. Coach, guess what? Once again, you're correct. 36-3. It was not close. And, you know, Eric Dungey couldn't make it through the game. He's out. They took care of business, and they're on this roll. Then we'll talk about USC later. But Notre Dame in Yankee Stadium with the pinstripes took care of business over the Orangemen. Mark, you watch this.
I'll tell you what, Eric Dungey got knocked out of this game early in the first quarter. Tommy DeVito was stepped in the game, and he wasn't ready for this game. He got sacked 6 times, threw 2 interceptions. That was the key. When you lose your starting quarterback early in the first quarter, he is your leader. He's your bell cow. Once he was out of the game was over. Ian Book came back and played solid. But, Coach, those jerseys that they were wearing, if they're throwbacks, throw them back because they were ugly.
I agree with you, Mark. I'm one of these old-fashioned people who believe you have a uniform, you wear it each and every week, that when people see on TV or a picture, they know immediately that is Notre Dame, Penn State, whoever else it may be. That's just me. But Penn State, as I said, and I didn't think Dungey would finish the game, and I said, I hope I'm wrong. And the reason I felt that, for the last 3 years, he's missed the last 3 games due to injury. Notre Dame is an outstanding football team. Their defensive line is in the same comparison. I think you can put it with Clemson, with Alabama. Matter of fact, I think now wait, don't interrupt me, Mark, particularly when you don't know what you're talking about. Here's why I say that. They are a complete football team in every single area, and I think that they're very vastly underrated. Whereas Syracuse, 9 conference wins, Mark, against Wagner. Connecticut 1-10 and a Mid-American Conference team. They lost to the 2 teams that had a winning record in the ACC. Their combined record of the wins in the ACC was something like 6 wins and 27 losses. So I really wasn't sold on Stanford, and I think the game justified that. Let me say Syracuse. I'll be okay. You have to understand, Mark, I'm not real sharp.
Well, sure. Gentlemen, that is our Week 12 college football show contest. And that was 5 games. And of those 5 games, Coach, you picked 3 winners. Mark, you picked 1, 2 winners. So that's what you have it, because I want to talk about our Week 12 Rapid 5 contest. First game, Duke goes down to Clemson. Duke was, like we said, David Cutcliffe was 7-3 at the time. That's a great season for them. They're throwing the ball, playing well. And oh, by the way, it's 14-6 at halftime. But Trevor Lawrence saw what he does. The freshman quarterback, Travis Etienne, comes in running the ball. But maybe who doesn't get a lot of credit is Trevor Lawrence has pretty much been untouched for about the last 6 games. That offensive line takes care of him. They found a way to just steamroll it on through 35-6. Clemson's on a roll. Mark.
If you look at this game, Clemson was really sleepwalking in the first half. You look at the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, 0 for 7 on 3rd down. Travis Etienne, the running back, only had 4 yards in the first half. They just basically had one of those games where it was like, oh, it's Duke, we'll roll our helmets out. I guarantee you that there's some paint peeling off the walls of Dabble Sweeney at halftime, because they turned it around the second half, got it done. And again, they've won their 6th consecutive game by 20 points or more. This is why they're a quality football team, Coach.
It really wasn't much of a contest. You know, I really am impressed with Daniel Jones, the quarterback for Duke. He had such an outstanding game the week before, and Clemson was really ready for it. It's just hard to beat Clemson at Clemson. Trust me. They called Death Valley for a reason, and it was a great win for Clemson. Now, Duke will get to entertain Wake Forest in the last home game.
Well, Coach, also, Mike, you mentioned those lovely locker rooms at Clemson. I'm sure that was a great halftime speech for David Cutcliffe. But the Arizona Wildcats go to Pullman, Washington to play Washington State. And you think about Gardner Minshew and the mustache. Arizona's coming in. They've got a lot of momentum. Khalil Tate's throwing the ball. Guess what? 7 touchdowns. It was 69-28. Washington State took care of business, scored 34 points in the second quarter. This was not near close. Mark.
It was a terrible game by Arizona. They weren't ready to play this game. I think Kevin Sumlin's pregame speech must have been, defense is optional, guys, because they didn't play any defense in this game. 7 touchdown passes by Gardner Minshew. It was over. This is a typical Mike Leach game. They're up by almost 30 points in the fourth quarter, and, Coach, he's still throwing the football in the air. They scored 14 points by passing in the fourth quarter to pile it on. That's Mike Leach. No class, just piles it on teams when he can. He shouldn't do this because he's going to catch up to him sometime during his career, and it always has. When the opposition's had a chance to do it to him, they've done it to him. So the next time when they play a good team, watch out.
You always pick on the coach. It is Arizona's job to hold the score down. That's not Washington State's job. Either recruit better or coach better. It was 55-14 at halftime. They poured it on them in the first half. They only scored 14 points in the second half. Arizona now has to beat their arch rival to become bowl eligible. So we'll see what happens. But Washington State's a different football team at home, Mark, and they really are great. But I wonder how good they've been had Gardner Minshew not transferred from East Carolina to be their quarterback, because they didn't have a quarterback prospect until he transferred from East Carolina. He couldn't win at East Carolina. Let's give Mike Leach a lot of credit, because Minshew's having a great year.
He was going to go to Alabama when he was going to transfer. You know what the speech Mike Leach gave him? You can go to Alabama and be a backup, or you can come to Washington State and lead the nation in passing. I think he made the right decision.
How did that work out for him? Worked out for both teams.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if Nick Saban would have let him keep that mustache. But we'll talk about them in the Apple Cup later. But I will tell you, Iowa State, we call them the Giant Killers, went down there to Austin to play Texas. And remember, Brock Purdy, he's done some damage. Did it against West Virginia this year, the Iowa State freshman quarterback. So what did Texas do? They just tackled the guy. And they tackled this guy a lot. They smothered him. They took care of business. Texas 24-10. And, oh, by the way, they got to win one more game, and they beat Kansas. They're in the Big 12 championship game at the end of the season. Mark, talk to us about this one.
This is probably the most complete game Texas has played on both sides of the ball. They lost their quarterback, Sam Ehlinger, in this game. Shane Buechele came in and still played very well. When Ehlinger went out, he had a touchdown run and a touchdown pass, but they've got to keep him healthy if they want to make a run at this. And here's the other thing. When you look at their defense, they were outstanding. 168 total yards, just 65 on the ground, Coach. Their defense stuffed the run of Iowa State, put them in a box. And this is the way that you thought Texas would play throughout the year. But this team just can't have the consistency, or they haven't had the consistency the entire season. But if they play like this against Kansas, they'll be playing in the Big 12 championship game.
Well, Shane Buechele's had a lot of experience. 2 years ago, he was a starter and really performed very, very well. Erlinger's done an outstanding job. But I agree with you, Mark, that they played a complete football game. And, the old saying, you win championships with defense, you sell tickets with offense. But with whoever has a great defense, you look at West Virginia, you look at Oklahoma, they're not a great defense. Texas defense is better among those three teams, but not great on a consistent basis. I agree with you in that respect, Mark.
Well,
That's
defense
unusual,
optional. Coach, defense optional in the Big 12 will be said, but I think defense was also optional in College Park, Maryland this weekend. I know this was a battle of emotions. You see what Maryland's gone through this year. Ohio State's gone through some of their own emotions. You could see the stress on some of the people's face on the sideline. A lot of people said, it's going to be a blowout. 52-51, Ohio State, 2 overtimes. Mark?
Ohio State got lucky in this one. They go for a 2-point conversion. Maryland didn't get into the end. I like what Matt Canada did. He should be their head coach. Take the intern tag off of him. He's done a terrific job under the circumstances at Maryland. Anthony McFarland did a terrific job running the ball. He had 231 yards in the first half against the Buckeye defense. The most yards Urban Meyer's ever given up on the ground with any opponent, no matter where he's coached in the first half. And they almost pulled it off. They rushed for well over 300 yards in this football game. Something's wrong with this Ohio State defense, coach. They don't control their gaps. They don't contain on the outside. They don't force the edge, and they don't tackle well. And I said it from week 1 against Oregon State. It's got to be their Achilles heels, and it's got to catch up to them sooner than later. And it's going to be sooner against Michigan when they play Michigan. But that's the problem with the Buckeyes. They can't stop anybody running the football.
A blind man could see that they're poor on defense, Mark. The thing that worries me about Ohio State is, number one, their defense. You say they don't stay shoulder squared. Fundamentally, they don't play the gaps. They don't tackle particularly well. They play predominantly man-free coverage, and they have been giving up an awful lot of points and yards this year. But what also scares me about Ohio State's their offensive line. How many times have they had 3rd and 1 this year and could not make it? In overtime, they have 4th and 1. Or actually, 3rd and 1 didn't make it. On 4th and 1, they threw the ball. The offensive line is not able to control the line of scrimmage. Now, if you can't play good defense and you can't run the football on a consistent basis with 2 great backs like Dobner and Weaver, you got real problems. But let's give Urban Meyer an awful lot of credit. He found a way to win. And the fact that they went for 2, I want to win for 2 because you're dominating the game. You're better on offense than Ohio State is. You have a better chance to stop them than they do you. But Ohio State made a mistake when they put the guy in the flat. 2 guys ran for the guy in the flat. They left the inside receiver wide open. The quarterback just missed him. He was open. Could have been a win. And as far as naming him the head football coach, he's done a tremendous job. He did not do a very good job last year at LSU. He was fired as offensive coordinator. He goes to Maryland's offensive coordinator. Then when the coaching carousel happened, he ended up the head coach, and he's done a good job. Maybe he's not a great offensive coordinator. Maybe he's a great head coach.
Well, we're going to talk about those teams later on, but probably the oldest rivalry in America, Yale and, as Mark said, Harvard. Yale-Harvard play in the shadow of the Green Monster in Fenway Park, and Harvard just took care of business, 45-27, probably the highest scoring game they've had in years. Mark, both of y'all picked Harvard.
Could have been a bigger game, but Devin Darlington, the running back, gave the 1-finger salute and had a touchdown called back. Not a classic thing to do if you're a Harvard man. But the thing is, Tom Stewart, the quarterback, had a terrific day, throwing for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns to just 1 interception. And Harvard rolled in this game early, and it was over before halftime, in my opinion.
No. You didn't watch the whole. You didn't watch the whole game. I watched the game, Mark, and I want to tell you, this was really an entertaining game. And number one, it was sold out in Fenway Park. And the enthusiasm of the Yale and the Harvard fans was tremendous. But Yale had the lead at something like 24-23 in the 3rd quarter. Then Harvard dominated. And I agree with you. Stewart did an outstanding job. But I was also impressed with the quarterback from Yale. He could throw the ball equally as well. But it's a shame Stewart got hurt at the end of the game. And it was his last game, so it won't be a factor.
Well, for clarification, upon further review, the camera and video evidence has proven that the young man was saying we're number 1. Now, that's our Week 12 Rapid 5 review, and it's going to get us ready for this Week 13 rivalry week.